Hey, Juicebox.
Yep.
Since COVID started and we've now been, 6-7 months into it, what is the one thing that you miss prior to everything shutting down?
I mean, I guess beyond just general being around other people in public, probably going to concerts, because Dana and I had some pretty awesome tickets this spring and summer.
Well, what if I told you that I had something for that empty feeling of not being able to go to a concert this year?
I'm listening.
We've talked about it on the show before, but the real deal is...
Oh. This is a CBD ad.
It is a CBD ad.
Okay.
Yes, because we have a great sponsor in Two Tours CBD.
We actually got the website right this time.
We did. It's actually twotours.com. And if you add a / Raising Nashville on the back end of that, you're going to get a special deal.
That's right. I don't know what it is, but it's great.
It is incredible. And if you are feeling the low-end empty feeling of not being able to go to a concert this year, and we're going to hold you over until 2021 with Two Tours CBD.
People, you know what CBD is. Why do we have to explain it to you?
We don't. It is something that is going to, ease your anxiety and pain. It is going to allow you to get into a euphoric state until you can officially walk into a venue next year and see your favorite band play.
You're really overselling it.
twotours.com / Raising Nashville for your special offer. Two Tours CBD. We came home together. We grow together.
Raising Nashville. Raising Nashville. Raising Nashville. Raising Nashville.
Welcome to Raising Nashville. I'm Bucky.
Juicebox.
And in a town with a moniker of Music City, USA, we must have some pretty incredible and historic music venues, right?
Yeah, I've heard of a couple here.
Yeah, among the likes of places like the Basement, Send Amphitheater, Exit Inn, City Winery, the 5 Spot, the Inn, Dee's Country Cocktail Lounge, Marathon Music Works. There's a rich and historic past among Nashville music venues. The Ryman Auditorium is one of the most sought out venues in the country. If you walk the corridors of Municipal Auditorium, you will see enlarged concert tickets of bands who have played there, like the Rolling Stones and the Grateful Dead. Our focus today doesn't want to take away from all of those great venues and what makes Nashville such a special place. Instead, we want to highlight a period of time for Nashvillians that allowed for up to 18,000 people to enjoy their favorite bands with each other underneath the beautiful stars of Antioch, Tennessee.
Take me away, Bucky.
If you're new to Nashville, you might have heard that Antioch doesn't always get the best rap. Some people even turn their nose up to the word Antioch itself. But what if we told you there used to be an excitement in that part of Nashville? What if we told you Antioch, Tennessee, of all places, was a stop on your favorite band's world tour? Yes, Antioch. Just 25 minutes from the neon lights of Broadway, we used to be entertained by the likes of Aerosmith, Metallica, Stevie Ray Vaughan, Fish, Winona Judd, Britney Spears, Whitney Houston, and yes, even Spinal Tap and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Hold up. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yes, they went on a world tour. I would say a national tour, probably around the 91, 92 era. I'm going to say this was Ninja Turtles 2, Secret of the Ooze, when they had a little rap group around them. You remember the Vanilla Ice days. Do you remember they used to give out tapes when you got pizzas at Pizza Hut?
I remember our episode about Ninja Turtles and Vanilla Ice. I'm familiar with that now. I'm just curious about how that worked. Like with did they have a band? Were they pretending to play instruments? Were they even? I mean, obviously, it was like a Milli Vanilli type scenario, right? They weren't like rapping inside of the turtle masks.
It's funny that you say that because Milli Vanilli also played this venue that we're talking about.
Holy shit.
But ultimately, I was way too young for Ninja Turtles concerts at that time, so I have no idea. If you haven't caught on by now, today we're talking about the local, never forgotten haven for live music lovers young and old. While it went through a few name changes over the years, to us, it will always be known as Starwood Amphitheater. We are going to go through the history of Starwood as we remember it, talk about the downfall, sprinkle in multiple interviews from former workers and Starwood attendees, and close the topic with the ever-changing idea of what to do with the 77 acres off I-24.
Right. I'm personally excited about this because I didn't know much about Starwood. You know, I know you guys talked about it a lot, and other people I knew that lived close to Nashville had come to show us here, but I never came down for it, so I'm pretty excited about it. When you said the fall of it, I mean, you made it sound so epic. Like, what kind of dirty, shady business are we in for here?
I wouldn't say shady. I would just say towards the end, it may not have been the moneymaker as they foresaw it for a very long time.
Yeah, I get that.
It was 20 years of greatness. So what we're going to call these episodes, and yes, we say episodes. So we're going to do a 2-part series on Starwood. I am calling this From the Monkees to Motley Crue, a history of Starwood Amphitheater. And you will kind of get that idea as we continue to talk, go through some interviews, talk about some fun facts and memories and concerts and, you know, everything that surrounded that little special place in the woods off I-24 or Murfreesboro Road or Old Hickory Boulevard, whichever way you took.
Yeah, so let me just pick a bone with your title real quick. You said From the Monkees to Motley Crue, but before that you named off Ninja Turtles, which I feel like is even more of an obscure music act than the Monkees, you know? Like,
I think there was more than that. I mean, there were some crazy things that surrounded Starwood. I want to say in 1990, there was a big Bart Simpson type character who led the symphony on the stage of Starwood Amphitheater.
What the hell?
Yes. Bill Cosby actually was part of the ribbon cutting for Starwood with the mayor.
No.
Maybe that wasn't the best reference. There's been many things. Britney Spears' Baby Hit Me One More Time tour landed at Starwood.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
But we'll get into many, many, many concerts that happened there and many stories behind those concerts.
I think we have to preface, too, like, for people that didn't live here, like, there was no Bridgestone at that point, right? Like,
there wasn't.
Whatever it was called back then. Like, so it was kind of the big concert place.
It was. I think back then there was a divide that we don't see now between large venues and small venues because, you know, Starwood opened in the late 80s, and back then I think you had Municipal Auditorium. The Ryman was still closed until the early 90s. So you had Municipal, you had small places like Exit In, and then you had Starwood Amphitheater. So you're talking, I think Municipal could hold, 6,000 people.
Yeah, yeah.
And then Exit In, obviously we're looking at a small 150-person venue. And then all of a sudden you have this 18,000-person behemoth that's 25 minutes from Nashville.
All right, so yeah, you said it opened in the late 80s. It actually opened in 1986. So let's jump into the history of it a little bit because, I mean, I can look that up at least. I don't have any stories to tell. But so Starwood Amphitheater, like I said, it opened in 1986. Construction started in 1985. November 1985 is, I think, what I saw. And it cost, this is what it was reported, it cost $7.8 million to build in 80s money, which would be equivalent to about $19 million today. To put that in perspective, Ascend costs the city $50 million to build.
Wow.
And
when Starwood today would have cost $19 million.
No, I mean, Starwood today would have cost
a lot.
Well, yeah. You're not building a music venue for $19 million now, probably.
But I feel like that a lot of that $7.8 million went into like landscaping the area and tearing down trees and, building parking lots. Because it just seems like when you build a structure out of concrete, it can't be that expensive.
I'm not sure, man. You're asking the wrong person about construction costs. Another point I wanted to make, like, Starwood held like 17,000, 18,000 people, something like that. Ascend holds 6,800 people.
Yep.
Anyway, Starwood Amphitheater is the brainchild of this guy named Steve Moore. Apparently, he was the former CEO of the Country Music Association. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, he also worked for a concert company in Houston, booking acts at Astro Worlds and Six Flags over Texas. So that was like his thing, is booking concerts for that. But in 1985, he moved to Nashville, and he was hoping to open his own venue, you know, using the experience that he had got there. And he wanted to tailor this venue towards bands like the shitty version of the Beach Boys, fucking Cheeseburger in Paradise Dude, the fucking Eagles.
Man, come on. I had a rough night, and I hate the fucking Eagles, man.
I think Lebowski said it best.
So he was targeting the big sellers right then, right?
Yeah,
the draws.
He was. I mean,
hold on. Who was the bad version of the Beatles?
No, the Beach Boys.
Beach Boys.
It's still the Beach Boys, but it's just like, you know, it's not the Pet Sounds Beach Boys. It's like the Kokomo Beach Boys or whatever, like the shit you don't care about, you know, the cheesy, terrible.
The collared shirts tucked into jeans Beach Boys.
But anyway, construction started in November of 1985, and they had their first concert in June of 1986. And I guess there's some debate about what the first concert actually was.
There's a lot of debate about that.
I couldn't find the first thing I saw listed there was Blue Oyster Cult. And then the rest of that summer, there was other bands like Charlie Daniels, the Monkees, Loverboy, Willie Nelson, Whitney Houston, the Cheeseburger in Paradise guy.
Jimmy Buffett is who you're referring to, right? It has to be. Because he wrote Cheeseburgers in Paradise here in Nashville, Tennessee at a little burger shop called Rotier's off West End.
Interesting tidbit.
It is.
It does not make me like him any better.
Okay.
And if you're a Jimmy Buffett fan, great. Just not for me. Anyway, Judas Priest, Mr. Amy Grant, Julio Iglesias, and Elton John.
That's a solid first year lineup.
Right? And it's pretty diverse. Like, that's a lot of different types of music.
It is. It's not targeting one audience. It's targeting all audiences. And when you say that there's been when we talked about it, there being a lot of controversy about the first band to play Starwood, they held quite a few free events to the public, right? And they held very minimal monetary ticketed events towards the beginning. It may be, a couple of dollars to get in. They just wanted to show people the place. There were bands playing, so some consider those the first people to play Starwood.
Yeah, and I didn't bring it up, but that first year there was something called Volunteer Jam, which I guess was a free show.
That was a Charlie Daniels. He's been doing that for a long time.
Okay. So yeah, like Dwight Yoakam, Carl Perkins, Allman Brothers all played with him.
A lot of people say Carl Perkins was considerably the first person to play, and it was during one of those events where it's kind of a multifaceted thing. They had like art and barbecue competitions and stuff like that, and Carl Perkins plays, and you can find pictures on the Tennessean of that, and I think the Pointer Sisters and Hank Williams Jr. and all of those people kind of played these variety shows. But man, Carl Perkins was looking old during that time, and that guy made some incredible music back when Elvis was big, you know, and Johnny Cash was coming up.
Yeah,
it was probably an honor for them to have him kind of be one of the first people to step on that stage.
Speaking of the stage, it also featured a second stage. Is that right? Like, I was reading something about like they had a second stage at one of the or close to one of the entrances, and like smaller bands would play there, or like opening acts or something like that.
From what I remember, it was called the Veranda, and it was kind of say you're standing on the stage of Starwood Amphitheater. For those of you out there who are listening to us who vividly remember Starwood Amphitheater. If you've moved here in the last few years and you listen to our podcast, you might have no idea what we're talking about.
You're gonna be like me.
Yeah, we want to take you back to a time when we actually enjoyed just a simpler life of concerts and amphitheaters. And for those of you, if you walked into the main gates of Starwood Amphitheater and kept going, on the concrete slabs, you kept walking up past the top of the grass. The concessions are on your right. the bathrooms on your right. You keep going, and there was a veranda stage up there that catered to much smaller bands. So later on, when like Ozfest was going on, or Volunteer Jams, or Buzzfest, or the Lilith Fair, things that were happening, bands would play up there because you could kind of escape the sound of the amphitheater, still have this little stage that catered to about 1,800 to 3,000 people.
Right. Yeah, I was reading something that said like sometimes like local bands would play up there like before the opening act instead of playing on the main stage. Like they'd have them playing there when you're like coming in, which I think is an awesome idea.
I mean, that's how a lot of bands started at Starwood. A lot of them didn't make it, but some of them did. My first experience was kind of mid-90s, right? So you get out of junior high, you start to go into high school, you're coming of age, so to speak, and you're really into the bands coming up. Like, who was it? It was like the Green Days, and to
Gin
me,
Blossoms.
Gin Blossoms. We talked. You tricked me into that. We talked earlier about like the Spin Doctors and bands like Fish, or bands like for me, No Doubt, Weezer. Some of these bands that were in the mid '90s.
Yeah.
That were making names for themselves through the punk and like the garage rock world, but then now they finally made it. And my first concert there was actually No Doubt, and Weezer opened up for them on the Blue Album tour.
What? Weezer opened for No Doubt?
They
it seems
did.
like it would be the other way around.
It does, right? But No Doubt had just hit it big with the album Tragic Kingdom. The craziest concert comes on concert number 2 for Starwood for me, and that was, being with one of my friends in junior high, and then kind of ninth grade. I think it was the summer between junior high and ninth grade, potentially, that we wake up early one morning on a Saturday. We go down to our local Kroger's. We're waiting in line outside of Kroger, which was crazy.
Oh, man.
Do you remember that?
Yes, I totally forgot. Oh, now I do. I totally forgot about having to buy tickets at Ticketmaster at Kroger.
At Kroger. People, those machines never worked either. Like they were the lady was always so confused, especially if the on sale was like 5 concerts at one time or one day.
What the hell was that racket? What the?
I don't know. You could also buy tickets at Tower Records. I do remember that, but I never got a ride down to Tower Records, and Kroger was within walking distance.
In Lexington, Kentucky, you could buy tickets at the back of this store called Now, when I say it out loud, it sounds weird. Doll Hairs. Anyway, it was like a clothing store. It was like a Dillard's or something like that, but like locally owned Dillard's. But they had a Ticketmaster like little booth in the back of the store. It was so weird. You'd like go in there randomly. I went in there one time with my mom. And I was like, "What the hell is this store? Why are we going in here?" And it turns out she was buying wrestling tickets at Rub Arena.
Nice. Yes, for those of you out there who don't remember how you used to buy concert tickets, that's how we did it.
Yeah. There was no upcharge. Well, I mean, there was some sort of upcharge, but nothing like it is now.
So I remember going down to the Kroger, standing in line, buying these concert tickets and being so excited about it. I like saved my grass cutting money. I don't think I told my mom exactly what I was purchasing because it was, cash and it was my money. So it comes to the day of the concert. I want to say it's on a Tuesday. And, it's either right before school starts or right after school started, and she takes me and my buddy down to Starwood Amphitheater, and she's like, "What band are you going to see?" I said, "It's a band called Rage Against the Machine. Ever heard of them?" Yeah, that's fitting right there. Ever heard of them? She was like, "No, I don't know. Is it a good band?" I was like, "Yeah, they're pretty good." So I remember her, again, we talked about that exit off 40 to the Mount Juliet exit. We take the road up. She drops us off, at the top. I remember we specifically asked to get dropped off around, 5:30 or so, just so when she turned around and pulled off, it gave us a chance to peruse the parking lot because, your parents are all concerned. They want to see you walk to the gate. So we make that trek to the gate. And then as soon as we get in line, we see her car pull off. And then we turn around and we're like, "Hey, man, this looks fun."
Yeah, right.
And that's something we got to talk about. Starwood's parking lot was awesome. Like it was like it was a music festival before music festivals existed.
See, I read some very conflicting testimonials about that. Like some
About
people
them running off people drinking and tailgating.
Yeah, and then like after a certain period of time, like certain time, maybe somebody took over or something and really started to crack down on it, which I get it to an extent, but like you said, that is just like part of the atmosphere of a show. It's like you don't run people off from a tailgate at a football game.
Sure.
know?
I think some shows they could control it, and there were some crowds they couldn't.
Yeah,
I want
right.
to say like your Jimmy Buffett, the guy you love. His crowds, you can't control tailgating. A Fish concert there in 1999 and 2000, you can't control those crowds. Rage Against the Machine. Some Skinner shows, you know?
Right.
There's just some concerts you can't control. Anyway, so we peruse the parking lot. We go into the Ascend Amphitheater. All of a sudden, we missed the opening band. All of a sudden, the Wu-Tang Clan comes out. I didn't know much about them at this time.
What year is this?
This is, I want to say 96 or 97. This is before drugs and alcohol and anything that I've experienced in life that has, you know, diminished any memories that I have. I do remember this concert very well. I was young, I was excited, and then all of a sudden Wu-Tang comes out. I don't understand any of the words that they're saying. They're rapping really fast. There's so many of them on stage. What I do remember were there were like kids on stage, like their kids were on stage with them holding like 40s. And everybody on stage had a 40, even these kids. And they would come out to the front row and just pour 40s on people. And they were encouraging their kids to do so. And I was just like, man, this is something that my mom could never know about. That
I don't know if I believe that.
I will find, not Starwood, but I will find like 1996, 97 Wu-Tang video footage. There were children on that stage.
I need to see them dumping a 40 into people's mouth in the front row.
Okay, we're gonna look that up and try to post that on our socials.
Because that's a lot further than a kid being on stage.
It is, but even 40, maybe, I don't know, the Jizza or RZA or Method Man were pouring the 40s, but the kids were on stage. I do remember that. Okay. Then Rage comes out. I had Evil Empire. This was before I even knew that the original Rage CD existed.
Oh, man.
And that turns out to be obviously the better one. But I was into Evil Empire at the time. It was all the defiance of my parents. Like, I need any CD that says parental advisory, I have to have that, right?
Right.
So I go to see Rage Against the Machine. I remember within song 1, 30 seconds in, I turn around and I'm like, holy shit. I grabbed my buddy and I said, look back there. There is the biggest fight I've ever seen going on right now. They're going to shut this concert down.
Damn.
Turns out it was a mosh pit and my first experience with one of those.
Oh, man.
So the guys were like, everybody was just having a really good time together. And if you remember Starwood Amphitheater, the mosh pit always happened, no matter what concert you were at, right behind the pavilion, right in front of the grass. There was like this concrete walking area, and that was the epicenter of any mosh pit that happened there.
Right.
It was incredible. We walked back up there. We watched that. Remember, after the show, my mom was there in the parking lot ready to pick us up. We get in the car, and, you know, we're probably sweating, and I think it rained a little bit during that concert, and we get in, and she was like, so, boys, how was the show? And, you know, I said, we looked at each other. We're in the back seat. She can't see either of our faces. We look at each other, and the eye contact was made, and we're like, you cannot let her know how much fun that was. So I just...
Why?
Because I was like 14 or 15. I didn't want her to know what world I was in at that point, right? I wanted to be this innocent boy that she loved and raised. And
you didn't want her to think you enjoyed a concert that you spent your own hard-earned money on.
No, I didn't want her to know it was Rage Against. I didn't want her to look into Rage Against the Machine or Wu-Tang Clan.
Okay.
I became big fans of them. We looked at each other, we bit our tongues, and we say, "What? I mean, it was all right," and kind of sounded disappointed, but there was an amazement on our faces the entire ride home. I couldn't sleep that night. I can imagine. Not only the ringing in the ears that everyone remembers from Starwood or any concert,
but like the 40 that was dumped in your mouth by a kid.
Just so giddy from that. Speaking of crazy stories that happen at Starwood Amphitheater, we did get in touch with somebody who has a very special connection to the place. He actually worked there for 10 years. He started, from what we're going to find out here in this interview, from the bottom and kind of worked his way up through the ranks at Starwood Amphitheater. He has incredible and infinite knowledge of the topic that we're covering right now. His name is Joe, and we got a chance to sit down with Joe. All right, today we've got a very special guest. His name is Joe, and as Joe knows, we are highlighting a few stories from people affiliated with Starwood in some capacity during its 20-year run. Can you tell our listenership what your direct connection to Starwood is?
I started at Starwood in late 88 and worked up until 97. Did basically everything there was to do backstage, from starting as low as I could on the totem pole to literally climbing the very top of the building and hanging the sound and lights and everything out there.
That is incredible. With potentially hundreds of stories like someone like yourself could tell, can you tell us one of your favorite memories from working at the amphitheater?
There was a little-known artist at the time that was around, and everybody knows who he is now. He was managed by one of the people who did Starwood, and he played at a local bar here for many years. And he happened to be the opening act for Ray Charles one night. Wow. And Phil Vassar. And so we rented a concert grand for Phil to come out and play with as he opened for Ray. Well, that night, right before the show started, Ray's keyboard went down, and everybody was on the headsets trying to figure out, hey, can we fix this? What are we going to do? Just by chance, we had the baby grand there that had been rented for Phil Vassar to play, and that night, Ray Charles played that baby grand on stage. We rolled it out there to kind of save the show, kind of thing. I mean, he would have done the show regardless without his keyboard, but still.
That's pretty.
Hearing him on that baby grand that night was great.
All right, so I have to say, then the next question goes into, like, over you said you worked there for what, about 10 years?
Yeah, about 10 years.
So over your 10-year run, and I know this firsthand just from attending so many concerts there at Starwood. I talked earlier in our podcast about having like a grass pass, which only those of the mid 90s remember from 103 KDF. Over your 10-year run, what is one of the craziest things you ever saw on any given night?
Okay, I'll run 3 or 4 by you. I saw a Crue member walk across the stage absolutely naked, except for an inflatable sex doll sheet taped around his buttocks, and walked across the stage while the main act was playing.
Was that Red Hot Chili Peppers?
No, I'm
that was a joke.
I had a major artist. We were sitting in our crew room, which was off stage left, and his stage manager came and started beating on the door, and he asked us where the closest restroom was because the artist had to take a dump. So the artist had to run off the stage and go to the crew bathroom to use the bathroom, and they said, tell the guitar player to keep playing. And the guitar player kept playing and playing and playing, and then later Ozzy went back to the stage. I've seen bands that were on stage that when the lead singer would take a break and he walked around to the back of the stage and met the other band member, that they literally just clocked each other and went at each other brawling. Then one walks around the other side of the stage, the other one walks around the other side of the stage, and they keep going with the show, but they were just knockdown dragging.
I was going to say, do you ever remember or have any recollection of people burning pizza boxes in the lawn?
Worse than that. I was working the show. Well, we've had several where there were bonfires lit. But when we were doing a Leonard Skinner show, which is funny, is because I was talking to the lead singer of Leonard Skinner at the airport when I was in Florida, and I asked him if he remembered that night. He was like, "Oh my gosh, yes, we remember that night." But they were about to do, before they had always played Freebird, but they had like an eagle on the piano, and everybody just put the spotlights down on the eagle, but they didn't sing it. Well, this night they were going to sing, actually, Freebird. And before we got to that part, somebody ran into a transformer or one of the power stations, and we lost power at Starwood. The whole thing went dark.
Oh, man.
And the crowd did not like that. It was so dark that we were taking flashlights trying to illuminate them from the stage, and they were trying to say, if the power comes back, we'll come back. And it came back on for a second. They started to play again and went out again. And people started, not I want to say rioting, but there were fires on the hill.
Yeah.
and the seats even down. I think that somebody had even tried to start a fire at the seats. But when you don't give people Freebird, what can you expect?
It seemed that Jimmy Buffett, Dave Matthews Band, and Leonard Skinner play there every single year.
And Metallica, pretty much.
Yeah, Metallica played a lot too. All right, finally, Joe.
Well, they did their rehearsals there at Starwood before they did their one of their tours. They set up their whole road show during the spring to practice for their tour. It was funny. You would walk by the dressing rooms and you would hear this garage band playing the best Metallica you've ever heard. And the fact of the matter, it was actually Metallica in the dressing room practicing the music as we were up there getting everything ready for them to take their tour.
Oh, wow.
And, you have to learn, you have to take things up and down and make sure your lighting cues work, make sure that everybody knows where they're supposed to be when the pyrotechnics go off. All of those things have to be rehearsed for months before tours take out. So they did theirs there at Starwood, and it was very interesting times, very nice guys.
Finally, we have to ask, what is your most favorite or most memorable performance that ever happened at Starwood? One, if you could narrow it down to one single performance you saw in your 10 years, what would it be?
Okay, serious and fun. When Spinal Tap played there, it was a not very well attended show, but everybody that was on the crew loved Spinal Tap because everybody knew who Spinal Tap was. A lot of people, maybe your audience members, have no idea, but they came on stage, and even in the dressing room and even in the catering, they were all in character all day long.
Oh, man.
And they were absolutely hilarious. And, there were gigs going on stage or gags going on stage that people in the audience couldn't even see. But it was really for the crew guys. Little things that were labeled in funny ways and stuff that you would never, ever catch. As a technician and a fan of Spinal Tap, that was fun. As far as one of the most memorable nights, it was Raining Cats and Dogs, and Stevie Ray Vaughan was standing out there in the middle of the stage, and it was raining sideways through the house, and he was playing either Can't Stand the Weather or Texas Flood. He was just smoking, and this storm was just like going crazy. And that to me is just, it's there's so many memorable moments, but that's one that kind of sticks out.
That's incredible. Was late 80s? I think my parents talk about that concert quite a bit because my stepdad is a major Stevie Ray Vaughan fan.
Before we get out of here, Joe, we were talking about it a little bit before we started recording. You were talking about the crew that you worked with out there and how you had got some notes from like some of the people that toured through that were like saying this is one of the best crews that we have ever worked with. Can you kind of maybe talk about that a little bit? Like talk about why do you think that crew was so tight and just so good at what they did?
A lot of the sound and live video companies and touring companies and trucking companies and bus companies are here. Mm-hmm. So all of the guys on that crew were basically either worked as shop technicians on the days when there weren't shows at Starwood, and they were on the crew there, or they were people who were usually on the road, but maybe their artist wasn't touring that weekend or wasn't touring that 3 months of that summer. So we had basically road guys that were local guys. So the intelligence level and the skill set that you had amongst the people that we had there on that crew was probably, I don't want to sound like I'm bragging, but I kind of am. I've said this to other people before that's on the crew, may have been the best group of assembled technicians in rock and roll or in the music business, not just rock and roll, but in the music business. I've worked with a lot of crews, but there was such a cumulative knowledge of the business. I mean, and we had all ranges of people, and it was just amazing at what an accumulative knowledge of people that you had working in that area. There was a sign backstage that said, backstage where high tech meets low life. And we always kind of used to laugh about that. But, some of the most honorable blood brother type people that you could ever meet in your life. And we've all kind of stayed connected throughout the years. And I'm glad to say that a lot of the people that we worked with at Starwood then, I mean, some of them are gone now, but for the most part, the people who stuck with this are out there with some of the biggest tours in the world right now where they're running the show.
That's incredible.
And that's always good to see.
That is awesome. And it's great that Starwood was kind of the birthplace of that. Well, Joe, we want to say thank you so much for taking the time to share just a small piece of your knowledge of Starwood. If I could stay here for hours and hours, I would ask you question after question. So hopefully one day we can get together and we can share some cocktails or whatever you decide to drink, and you could tell me an endless array of stories from Starwood. But again, thanks for taking the time.
No problem, guys. I hope you have a good evening, and I hope you got some material worth using.
Oh, we definitely do.
Definitely. Thanks a lot again. So that was Joe. I just want to tell you guys, like, he had some stories that we had to cut out, and he also had some stories that he wouldn't even, like, he alluded to that he wouldn't tell us. But man, I don't know about you, Bucky. I really wanted to know some of those stories.
So up next, what we're going to do is, as most of you know, Starwood was not always Starwood, and that is, it's inevitable. You know, when you have something popular and you create something, somebody always has to attach their name to it. After opening at Starwood Amphitheater in 1985, the venue went through several name changes further on down the road. So in 1999, the naming rights were sold locally to a place called First American National Bank for 5 years. The venue was renamed First American Music Center. Get this, for one total year. It was First American Music Center.
What was it after that?
I think I still have a ticket that says First American Music Center. Maybe that'll be worth something. That October, First American National Bank merged into Alabama-based AmSouth Bank Corporation. So AmSouth agreed to assume the naming rights upon the merger. So just after one season, it was turned into AmSouth Amphitheater. A lot of people remember it for that, especially kind of the younger crowd. Because it was created, that was named in 2000.
Right.
That was a 5-year deal. AmSouth agreed to put their name on it for 5 years. After 5 years, they withdrew, and then there was no new suitor. So basically, in 2004, it went back to Starwood Amphitheater.
Right.
Because nobody else wanted to buy the naming rights.
Right, and that's got to be a big thing if you're like relying on some sort of money that's coming. It's like that sponsorship money or whatever, naming right money that's coming in, and
sure,
then you don't have it anymore.
But like every other amphitheater in the country, it always remains what it was in the beginning, right? There's a venue that I love in Indiana called Deer Creek. And I think it's now called maybe Verizon Wireless Music Center or something like that.
I do remember that going through a bunch of name changes.
We want to say, we want to kind of round out episode 1. Again, there are some big things coming up for episode 2, but we want to round out episode 1 talking about the reason that these two parts came together. For a lot of people in Nashville who, fondly remember Starwood Amphitheater, the concerts that went on there, we're going to continue in episode 2 talking about tons of that, tons more stories. But the reason this episode came to light, or this little series came to light, is because I was scrolling through Facebook one day and found, I think, a picture of like an old Starwood, or maybe the demolition of Starwood. And then, you kind of go down those rabbit holes and you find things like the Starwood Amphitheater Memories page. So in 2016, a guy named Justin created the Starwood Amphitheater Memories Facebook page. And it's a place for all of people to come and post pictures and concert tickets and lanyards and flyers and everything Starwood Amphitheater related, because it meant so much to so many people for 20 years. And he created this, and it has been a godsend to me. There's about 1,500 members, which I think is way too low. And there was a chance where I got to send him, I got in touch with Justin because I wanted to know for this podcast a couple of questions that a couple of questions about why he created the group, what the end goal is, what has this group done to him personally and for the community of Nashville. And in order to protect the innocence and the integrity of somebody who created something so special, he didn't want to come on the podcast unless we disguised his voice. And we understand that, and we completely sympathize with that.
Yeah, I wish I could disguise my voice.
Right? It's crazy. So what we're going to do is we're going to take you to a little portion of the interview with Justin, who created this amazing Facebook page called Starwood Amphitheater Memories page. What gave you the idea to start the Starwood Memories Facebook page, and how has it grown since its inception in 2016? Also, did you envision it would gain this much traction in the last year?
Well, one day back in 2016, I was on Facebook, and for some reason I started searching for Starwood. To my surprise, there was no Starwood group, so I decided to start one right then and there. I figured all we needed was a place where we could keep Starwood and our memories alive. I remember for the first 6 months, we only had like 20 people in the group, but slowly it started to grow, and soon we'll have a few thousand members in the Starwood Amphitheater Memories group. Here in the past 4 months, it's really grown. Probably because we're all stuck inside and want to relive better times. We've got more and more people joining every single day.
God, isn't that the truth? We want to go back to concerts, and if we can dive into our memory.
Right. I mean, yeah, it's just like a nostalgia trip for everybody. What haven't you looked up at this point?
Absolutely.
Everybody is reaching the end of the internet.
So we had one more question for Justin. Justin, were there any other thoughts or ideas you wanted to share with our listenership?
Starwood was more than just a concert amphitheater to a lot of us. Memories were made there that people still hold on to and talk about. Starwood made a lot of people's lives better. I guess all I got left to say is that if you love Starwood, then come join the Starwood Amphitheater's memory group. All are welcome, and we'd love to hear your stories and memories about Starwood.
And that's a good way to end it, because that actually allows our listenership to do a little homework this week. So you've heard our part 1 episode of Starwood Amphitheater. There is a lot in store for part 2, which is going to air next Monday.
I don't have a Facebook account, so I'm going to challenge our listenership to tell me a name I should make a Facebook account under and send me the profile picture I should use for it, and even write a bio for it. Create a character for it. Create my avatar that I can be on Facebook.
That's pretty incredible.
Just to check out this page.
Please, somebody do that other than me, because I have so many ideas now.
Actually, there's like 10 people out there that I don't hope do that.
Again, we want to thank Justin for answering a couple of questions, and Joe for the incredible interview earlier in the episode. Part 2 is going to include other bands who have played over the years. We're going to get into the mid-90s to the early 2000s. We're going to have, the special thing for next week is I'm going to have Juicebox unveil my remaining concert tickets from Starwood to show him some of the concerts that I've been to over the years. I think there's going to be some surprises in there. He might look at me differently after he sees some of these.
Did you ever see Bon Jovi?
There is a Bon Jovi ticket in there.
There is.
And we're actually going to interview a girl named Jennifer who actually, her house in her backyard has backed up to the Starwood property her entire life.
Which, I mean, I can't even comprehend that.
And then we're going to get into the closing of Starwood, why it did. That's the sad part, but we're going to make it a little bit fun. And then what has happened to that property over the years. We're going to round it out with that. We got a couple of other interviews for you guys. We got a couple more stories. and we're excited. So as always, wherever you're listening to us today, feel free to take 30 seconds to like us, rate us, tell your friends. If you are listening to us from that Starwood Facebook Memories page that Justin created, feel free to share it. Share it with your friends. Invite them to that page. We want more community. We want more pictures, more content. Thank you so much for listening. We are here each and every Monday. We're excited to get back next week for part 2.
Party on.